Alright, y'all, we are in for a wild recap this time for House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 4. Let's jump straight in. We begin the episode with a rather tortured Daemon stumbling upon a younger Rhaenyra once again. But this time she's sitting on the Iron Throne. So within this dream, Rhaenyra is confronting Daemon with the idea that Viserys chose her over him, and even goes as far as to saying that it was all because he loved her more. Hearing these words infuriates Daemon and he decides to cut off her head. However, Rhaenyra continues. The dream is then interrupted by Simon telling him that there has been a raven. He tells him that Aegon's army left King's Landing. Not only that, but since their departure, 2 castles have fallen, Rosby and Stokeworth. Now with this development, Criston Cole's army has since tripled in strength, and Simon assumes that Harrenhal is his next destination. But moving forward with the scene, Daemon assumes he's being taken to speak with Grover Tully, the Lord of Riverrun, but instead he is met with Oscar Tully, Grover Tully's grandson. And understandably so, Daemon is not enthused by the audience who he has been granted with, because as it currently stands, Oscar can't make any decisions. Only the current Lord Paramount of the Riverlands can, Mr. Grover Tully himself, who is on his deathbed.
My time is short and I have need of an army. Perhaps you might place a feather pillow over his head and speed along your inheritance.
When Oscar says that that's not the way that they do things, Daemon simply tells him that he is of no use to him then. He also goes on to say that he can now see why the Braggons and the Blackwoods weren't afraid to start a war under their rule.
Summon the Blackwoods here. I require men of action to lead my host of rivermen.
Over in Driftmark, Rhaenys visits the dock to see her husband, and while on her way she runs into Alan. She already knows who he is and also knows his facial features, that of which resembles her husband Corlys, though she doesn't say that out loud. When Corlys finally arrives, he dismisses Alan. Rhaenys then reveals that she spoke with the captains, and she tells him that they told her that Alan was the one that saved him. As for why Corlys didn't tell her himself, he simply says that he didn't think it was relevant. She confirms to Corlys that she already knows who he is, that being his child. As for why this is of discussion, I'll let her in her own words say it.
Alan's past is no fault of his. He saved his lord's life. He should be raised up and honored, not hidden beneath the tides.
Is this why you came?
Nope, but your bitch ass should be ashamed. But feelings aside, the reason why Rhaenys is really here is to tell him that Baela has called her over to Dragonstone. But more on that later. For now, let's jump on over with Alicent. You see, our girl here ran into a little bit of a situation. She got pregnant by Criston Cole, and the Grand Maester here just delivered her some freshly brewed moon tea. As he begins to take his leave, Alicent stops him. She then asks if he believes that Viserys wanted Aegon to succeed him. He responds by saying that he could not know, and that Viserys never discussed things like that with him. After that, he leaves, and once Alicent is alone, she takes the moon tea. Over in Dragonstone, Rhaenyra's council is trying to figure out where Criston Cole is going.
You should have burned them when you had the chance.
Perhaps you can, Sir Alfred, when you next sight them on your dragon.
Let his ass know, Baela. But among the mystery of where Criston Cole is actually going, they're also in the dark of what Daemon's been up to. And even though they've sent ravens, they still haven't gotten a response. Sir Alfred then takes this opportunity to express his frustrations about Rhaenyra's absence. And Rhaenys says that she's trying her best to keep everything on track, where Alfred snaps back and asks who gave her that power, and also questions why her voice should weigh more than theirs. And as he's lashing out at Rhaenys, Corlys walks in.
Is there naught to be done in the absence of the Queen but to grouse and claw for power?
And with that, order has been restored. For now. Rhaenys then ends by saying that they must trust what Rhaenyra's doing, and also trust that she's looking for a way to end the conflict. Meanwhile, Criston Cole is all about it. Over in Duskendale, he has just executed Lord Gunther Darkland. And with that, all the soldiers of House Darkland pledge loyalty to King Aegon. He's then given a letter, and upon reading it, he tells Gawain that they're now going northeast, the opposite direction of Harrenhal. Over in King's Landing, King Aegon just got news that Daemon took over Harrenhal. However, Aemon doesn't look surprised. As for why that is, that's because he had a plan of his own, and it's already in action. He reveals that Sir Criston's going to Rook's Rest, and this confuses Aegon because he didn't give any commands to go there. And to that, Aemon says in front of everyone that he's the one that gave the command. So why Rook's Rest? The goal here is to cut off Rhaenyra's means of travel, or at least limit it. Aegon disapproves and tells him that he still wants Harrenhal. However, it's too late because the plan is already in motion. Aemon then switches to High Valyrian so only he and Aegon knows what they're saying. Though, compared to Aemon, Aegon's High Valyrian is subpar at best.
Ilke Goston Vivilus Segiton Viligazni
Defeated and also embarrassed, Aegon lets Aemon continue explaining his plan to the rest of the council. And after the meeting, Larys pays Alicent a visit, and notices immediately that she had taken moon tea. Though, to be fair, she's the one that left the cup on the table. Also, she's clearly experiencing the side effects. After updating Alicent about everything that happened in the council meeting, Larys notices that in front of her she has history text, and he says that he didn't know that she had interest in it. This also shows that Alicent has been thinking about what she and Rhaenyra had discussed at the end of the last episode. And after slowly putting the pieces together, Larys finally asks Alicent if she doubts Viserys' intentions, where she says,
The significance of Viserys' intentions died with him.
Over with Daemon, he is having another spooky night in Harrenhal. After hearing noises outside of his door, he unsheathes his sword and checks out what it is. However, nothing is there. Further down, there's a man walking with a torch. And it's not until he turns around that he realizes that he's following a version of himself wearing Aemon's eye patch. He then makes his way down the halls until he comes upon a woman named Alice Rivers, who's revealed to be the same woman that came to him last episode saying that he's going to die in this place. She takes note of Daemon's sleeping habits and also lets him know that this place is cursed. She also says that the heart trees that used to exist on this land were imbued with the spirits who had first inhabited it. However, Daemon argues that it's all just a midwife's tale. And this is where she reveals that the bed that Daemon has been sleeping on is made from such a heart tree. And that would of course explain why he has been feeling the way he's been feeling. She also knows Daemon's refusal to respond back to any of Rhaenyra's ravens, and also the fact that he's been actively trying to gather men, hinting that he might be doing all this strictly for himself, and not in the name of Rhaenyra. She then gives him a sleeping remedy and then sends him on his way.
Here, drink this. You'll need your sleep if you're to win this place to your side.
Moving on to the actual meeting, it is not going well for him. Even though he's the one that called the meeting, he doesn't remember what this is all for. Nor does he realize that he's the one that summoned Willem Blackwood in the first place. As Willem is trying to discuss the terms for the use of his army, Daemon is too busy seeing his late wife Laena in one of Simon's servants. That aside though, Willem makes it clear. Once Daemon and his dragon sets fire to the Brackens, the Blackwood soldiers will be his to command. In another council meeting, there is more talk about resources being dwindled, and also how they're running out of money to extend their efforts, especially considering the upkeep of Sir Criston's army.
You bore me. You all bore me.
And with that, Aegon leaves his meeting and heads to his bedchamber where Alicent is, and she's shown rummaging through bookshelves. He proceeds to ask what she's doing, where she responds by asking where Viserys' books are, and he says that he's had them removed. Aegon then begins to rant about his council, and how no one there respects him, or listens to what he has to say, where of course Alicent isn't surprised to hear that. She's frank with Aegon and tells him that those men in those seats earned their seats, unlike him, and also how just wearing the crown doesn't automatically give him wisdom. He ultimately asks her what she thinks he should do, where she says,
Do simply what is needed of you. Nothing.
Hearing this breaks Aegon. More on that later though. For now, let's jump over to Rook's Rest. Criston Cole has called for them to attack during daylight. Though Gwaine is confused on why he is so adamant about attacking during the day, it's safe to assume that this is all in line with what he and Aemon have been planning. Over at Dragonstone, it is meeting time once again, and Rhaenyra has arrived.
We need to send a dragon.
Where?
To support the war that your vassals have been fighting in your absence. Your Grace.
To say the least, Jace is not happy. But Rhaenyra finally reveals to everyone where she has been, and now is in King's Landing trying to speak with Alicent about ending the conflict. However, as we all know, there is no stopping this war. So understanding what they now must do, and also knowing that Criston Cole is at Rook's Rest, it's time to act. Jace proposes sending a dragon, and also proposes that he go himself. However, Rhaenyra shuts him down, saying that he's inexperienced. She then offers to go herself, saying that they've mistaken her caution for weakness. However, she's too valuable, and thus Rhaenys decides that she will go. As for her reasoning, she says it's because Meleys is their largest dragon, and also the one with the most combat experience. And just like that, the decision is made. And at the same time, King Aegon has made a decision of his own. He and his dragon Sunfire will also be joining the battle. While everybody is getting ready for battle, Rhaenyra finally tells Jace about the secret that Viserys passed down to her. And that secret is Aegon the Conqueror's dream, the Song of Ice and Fire. As the battle begins, Criston Cole's first wave of men gets dealt with relatively easily. However, they aren't the main event, and Criston Cole knows this. And speaking of the main event, it's about to get started. And with the arrival of the first dragon, that being Meleys with her rider Rhaenys, Criston Cole sounds off a signal. Meanwhile, Rhaenys begins her assault and starts taking out Criston Cole's army, one dragon breath at a time. As for that signal, it's made it to the right ears, Aemond and Vhagar. But before he takes flight, we get a little surprise visitor. Aegon and Sunfire have finally arrived. And upon seeing this, Aemond calls his brother an idiot in High Valyrian, and he tells Vhagar to wait. This now puts a delay on his plan, and now Criston Cole is confused. And now since Aegon has joined the battlefield, and Aemond is delaying his arrival, Criston Cole is forced to improvise. And in doing so, he tells his men to advance, hoping to buy time for Vhagar. In the meantime, Rhaenys has just spotted Aegon, and she directs Meleys to attack. That was a good effort, Aegon, but you're gonna need to do a lot more to get rid of Rhaenys. And speaking of Rhaenys, she and Meleys attack from below, and Meleys uses her talons to carve at Sunfire's chest. Then, as Sunfire recovers and takes to the sky once more, Meleys attacks one more time and this time goes for the wing. However, unfortunately, that's not all that she can worry about, because now Vhagar and Aemond are on the move, and they're coming directly at her and Aegon. Both Rhaenys and Aegon see them heading this way, and Aegon actually shows a sense of relief. However, he does not know that Aemond has other plans.
You got it!
And down goes Sunfire and Aegon. Rhaenys takes this moment to temporarily retreat and collect herself, then she decides to turn back around and face Aegon, the real threat to not only Rook's Rest, but also the war to come. Once Aemond notices that she's coming straight for him, he turns Vhagar around, and now it's going to be a head-on battle. Rhaenys and Meleys attempt to go under Vhagar in order to attack her chest. However, Vhagar is able to grab a hold of her. Vhagar then breathes fire directly onto Meleys and Rhaenys, all the while Meleys is able to get a scratch onto Vhagar's chest. And still being held onto by Vhagar, the two dragons and their riders begin a fiery death spiral. At the last moment though, Meleys is able to break free, while Vhagar hits the ground. However, she's not done just yet. But during all the commotion, it is worth noting that Criston Cole is knocked unconscious. But anyways, crushing many soldiers in the process, Vhagar takes back to the sky, while Rhaenys and Meleys appear to be retreating. However, Rhaenys is having difficulty locating Vhagar. And if we've learned anything from how Lucerys died, despite how big she is, Vhagar is the queen of surprise attacks. Yep, a direct bite to the throat, and Vhagar is not letting go. During the struggle, knowing that there's no way out of this, Meleys looks at Rhaenys one final time, and then closes her eyes. And Rhaenys, accepting her fate, lets go of her saddle and plummets to the earth with Meleys. And that is the unfortunate end for Rhaenys and her dragon Meleys. Moving back over with Criston Cole, it is just a charred graveyard. He slowly gets back onto his feet and begins to make his way towards the direction that King Aegon fell. He spots Aemond walking towards Sunfire and Aegon with his sword, and as he's sheathing it, he picks up Aegon's dagger. As for the status of Sunfire and Aegon, Sunfire appears to be gravely wounded, and we only get a glimpse of Aegon's condition. As for Criston Cole, he falls to his knees upon the sight, realizing that he failed as the king's hand. And that concludes Season 2, Episode 4. See you guys next week.